Today is day 5 for the Come Follow Me study for this week, August 25th through the 31st. Receive of His Fullness, Doctrine and Covenants 93. Friday, August 29th, 2025, Doctrine and Covenants 93, 29 through 37. Man was in the beginning with God. Doctrine and Covenants 93:29. Man was also in the beginning with God. President Joseph Fielding Smith said, "The Latter-day Saints are the only people in the world, as far as my knowledge goes, who have a clear, distinct doctrine in regard to the questions, where did we come from? Why are we here? And where are we going? I believe we are the only people in the world who believe in the pre-existence of the human family. There are many who believe in the pre-existence of Jesus Christ, but they do not believe that we, individually, lived before we came into this life. One of the strange things to me is the fact that so many people believe that there is a spirit in man, and when he dies, that spirit continues to live as an immortal thing, yet that it had no existence until man was born in this mortal life. We lived in the presence of God and the Spirit before we came here. We desired to be like him. We saw him. We were in his presence. There is not a soul who has not seen both the Father and the Son, and in the spirit world, we were in their presence. But it became necessary for us to gain experiences which could not be obtained in the world of spirits, and so we were accorded the privilege of coming down here upon this earth." Elder Neal A. Maxwell said, in 1833, Joseph was told not only that Jesus was with God premortally, but that man was also in the beginning with God. Intelligence, or the light of truth, was not created or made, neither indeed can be. What a stunning parting of the curtains so that man could have a correct view of himself. The silence of centuries was officially broken. As the morning of the Restoration began to break, the shadows of false doctrines began to flee. Man's views of himself could become clearer, unimpeded by the overhanging of original sin. We are accountable to a just God for our actual and individual sins, not Adam's original. Doctrine and Covenants 93:29 continued. Intelligence, or the light of truth, was not created or made, neither indeed can be. Elder John A. Woodsoe noted that intelligence, as used by Latter-day Saints, has two chief meanings. First, a man who gathers knowledge and uses it in harmony with the plan of salvation is intelligent. He has intelligence. Second, the word, when preceded by the article "an," or used in the plural as intelligences, means a person or persons, usually in the spiritual estate. Just as we speak of a person or persons, we speak of an intelligence or intelligences. The term intelligence can be used to describe the spirit element that existed before we were begotten as spirit children. However, the Lord has revealed very few details concerning the nature of intelligences. President Joseph Fielding Smith taught, "Some of our writers have endeavored to explain what an intelligence is, but to do so is futile, for we have never been given an insight into this matter beyond what the Lord has fragmentedly revealed. We know, however, that there is something called intelligence, which always existed. It is the real eternal part of man, which was not created or made. This intelligence, combined with the Spirit, constitutes a spiritual identity or individual. The spirit of man, then, is a combination of the intelligence and the spirit, which is an entity begotten of God." Donald Q. Cannon, Larry E. Dahl, and John W. Welch said, "An element of every human being is divine and eternal." Joseph Smith used several different terms to refer to that eternal essence: spirit, soul, mind, and intelligence. He received the knowledge that man was also in the beginning with God. Intelligence, or the light of truth, was not created or made, neither indeed can be. He taught that the mind of man is as immortal as God himself, and that the spirit of man, meaning intelligence, is not a created being. He did not define, however, this element's form and substance, nor did he identify its attributes, other than its eternal nature. This eternal element of intelligence or light of truth is something other than the spirit bodies God created later. These later entities were the intelligences that were organized and were the spirits that Abraham saw. From revelations given to Joseph Smith and from his own comments about them, plus subsequent statements from later prophets, we know that spirit bodies are procreated by resurrected, exalted couples who have a fullness and a continuation of the seeds forever and ever. Spirits are begotten and born of heavenly parents and reared to maturity in the eternal mansions of the Father. In our own primeval births, the eternal intelligence part of us was organized and provided opportunity to become part of God's plan of salvation, with the potential to become like Him. This doctrine is ennobling and intriguing. The prophet Joseph Smith taught the following concerning the eternal nature of intelligence. I have another subject to dwell upon, which is calculated to exalt man. It is associated with the subject of the resurrection of the dead, namely the soul, the mind of man, the immortal spirit. Where did it come from? All learned men and doctors of divinity say that God created it in the beginning. But it is not so. The very idea lessens man in my estimation. I do not believe the doctrine. I know better. Hear it, all ye ends of the world, for God has told me so. And if you don't believe me, it will not make the truth without effect. I am dwelling on the immortality of the spirit of man. Is it logical to say that the intelligence of spirits is immortal, and yet that it has a beginning? The intelligence of spirits had no beginning, neither will it have an end. Intelligence is eternal and exists upon a self-existing principle. It is a spirit from age to age, and there is no creation about it. The first principles of man are self-existent with God. God himself, finding he was in the midst of spirits in glory, because he was more intelligent, saw proper to institute laws whereby the rest could have a privilege to advance like himself. The relationship we have with God places us in a situation to advance in knowledge. He has power to institute laws to instruct the weaker intelligences, that they may be exalted with himself, so that they might have one glory upon another, and all that knowledge, power, glory, and intelligence, which is requisite in order to save them in the world of spirits. President Marion G. Romney of the First Presidency explained the relationship between eternal intelligence and our identities as spirit children of God. The spirits of men are begotten sons and daughters unto God. Through that birth process, self-existing intelligence was organized into individual spirit beings. Elder Stephen L. Richards said, "Now, since intelligence is co-eternal with God and is the very glory of God, it follows logically that it is the chief investiture of man. Indeed, it is man, for it is that part of his constituency that persists, that is eternal. This knowing, conceiving, illuminating principle of existence lies at the base of all our powers and potentialities." Doctrine and Covenants 93:30. All truth is independent in that sphere in which God has placed it. Brian Richards said, "Truth is independent." That makes sense. Truth is truth, regardless of how unlikely or unpopular it may be. Truth is absolute, not relative, not subject to circumstance or public opinion. Elder George Q. Cannon said, "Some assert that what everybody says must be true. We confess we see no must in the case. What everybody says is as likely to be false as true. Truth does not depend on what is said of it, or what anybody knows about it. Truth is independent of anybody and everything, and still remains the same, however much it may be praised or blamed. Yet we hope to see the day when ignorance, error, and sin will be swept away, and the knowledge of God and truth will be universal." President Spencer W. Kimball taught, "The earth is spherical. If all the 4 billion people in the world think it flat, they are in error. That is an absolute truth, and all the arguing in the world will not change it. We learn about these absolute truths by being taught by the Spirit. These truths are independent in their spiritual sphere, and are to be discovered spiritually, though they may be confirmed by experience and intellect. The great prophet Jacob said that the Spirit speaketh the truth, wherefore it speaketh of things as they really are, and of things as they really will be. We need to be taught in order to understand life and who we really are. The gods organized and gave life to man and placed him on the earth. This is absolute. It cannot be disproved. A million brilliant minds might conjecture otherwise, but it is still true. And having done all this for his Father's children, the Christ mapped out a plan of life for man, a positive and absolute program whereby man might achieve, accomplish, and overcome and perfect himself. Again, these vital truths are not matters of opinion, but if they were, then your opinion would be just as good as mine or better. But I give you these things not as my opinion. I give them to you as divine truths that are absolute. Someday you will see and feel and understand and perhaps even berate yourself for the long delay and waste of time. It is not a matter of if, it is a matter of when. Experience in one field does not automatically create expertise in another field. Expertise in religion comes from personal righteousness and from revelation. The Lord told the prophet Joseph Smith, all truth is independent in that sphere in which God has placed it. A geologist who has discovered truths about the structure of the earth may be oblivious to the truths God has given us about the eternal nature of the family. If I can only make clear this one thing, it will give us a basis on which to build. Man cannot discover God or his ways by mere mental processes. One must be governed by the laws which control the realm into which he is delving. To become a plumber, one must study the laws which govern plumbing. He must know stresses and strains, temperatures at which pipes will freeze, laws which govern steam, hot water, expansion, contraction, and so forth. One might know much about plumbing and be a complete failure in training children or getting along with men. One might be the best of bookkeepers and yet not know anything of electricity. One might know much about buying and selling groceries and be absolutely ignorant of bridge building. One might be a great authority on the hydrogen bomb and yet know nothing of banking. One might be a noted theologian and yet be wholly untrained in watchmaking. One might be the author of a law of relativity and yet know nothing of the creator who originated every law. I repeat, these are not matters of opinion. They are absolute truths. These truths are available to every soul. Any intelligent man may learn what he wants to learn. He may acquire knowledge in any field, though it requires much thought and effort. It takes more than a decade to get a high school diploma. It takes an additional 4 years for most people to get a college degree. It takes nearly a quarter century to become a great physician. Why, oh why, do people think they can fathom the most complex spiritual depths without the necessary experimental and laboratory work accompanied by compliance with the laws that govern it? Absurd it is, but you will frequently find popular personalities who seem never to have lived a single law of God, discoursing in interviews on religion. How ridiculous for such persons to attempt to outline for the world a way of life. Doctrine and Covenants 93:30 continued. To act for itself, as all intelligence also, otherwise there is no existence. President Joseph Fielding Smith said, it is easy to see what a sad condition the world would be in if Lucifer's plan had succeeded. Chaos would have ruled supreme. Every soul would have become a non-entity. Individuality would have been destroyed, and all righteousness, mercy, truth would have passed away forever, and this would have brought destruction to the universe. How true the words of the Lord! All truth is independent in that sphere in which God has placed it, to act for itself, as all intelligence also. Otherwise, there is no existence. Doctrine and Covenants 93:31-32. Behold, here is the agency of man, and here is the condemnation of man, because that which was from the beginning is plainly manifest unto them, and they receive not the light. And every man whose spirit receiveth not the light is under condemnation. The pre-mortal war in heaven occurred when Satan rebelled against God and sought to destroy the agency of man. And those who followed Satan used their agency to choose evil and rebelled against God. Here on earth, we have the agency to act for ourselves. Without agency and the ability to act, there is no existence. God provides truth and light to help his children become aware of alternatives. Those who choose not to receive God's light will be under condemnation, even when they reject God's light in the belief that doing so will make them happier. Elder Neal A. Maxwell of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles observed, "So many have erred, thinking that freedom included both freedom to obey or not to obey eternal laws, and wrongly that it included freedom to change those laws. Not so. Ultimately, freedom involves choice between eternal alternatives, but not the altering of the alternatives. We can choose wickedness or happiness, but not wickedness with happiness. God will not coerce men, since all intelligence is free to act for itself. In that sphere in which God has placed it, behold, here is the agency of man, and here is the condemnation of man." President Wilford Woodruff said, "I wish to say that God has given unto all of his children of this dispensation, as he gave unto all of his children of previous dispensations, individual agency. This agency has always been the heritage of man under the rule and government of God. He possessed it in the heaven of heavens before the world was, and the Lord maintained and defended it there against the aggression of Lucifer, and those who took sides with him, to the overthrow of Lucifer and 1/3 part of the heavenly hosts. By virtue of this agency, you and I and all mankind are made responsible beings, responsible for the course we pursue, the lives we live, the deeds we do in the body. The elements are eternal, and man may receive a fullness of joy in the resurrection." Doctrine and Covenants 93, 33 through 34. For man is spirit. The elements are eternal, and spirit and element, inseparably connected, receive a fullness of joy. And when separated, man cannot receive a fullness of joy. President Joseph F. Smith taught, "We are called mortal beings because in us are seeds of death. But in reality, we are immortal beings, because there is also within us the germ of eternal life. Man is a dual being, composed of the spirit, which gives life, force, intelligence, and capacity to man, and the body, which is the tenement of the spirit. The two combined constitute the soul. The only way we can receive a fullness of joy, like the Savior has, is for our spirit and element to be inseparably connected. Death separates the body and the spirit temporally, but the resurrection connects them inseparably. The resurrection paves the way for a fullness of joy." Doctrine and Covenants 138. "And waited for their deliverance, for the dead had looked upon the long absence of their spirits from their bodies as a bondage." Elder Marion G. Romney said, "Now God, being omniscient, knew that death would pass upon all men because of Adam's partaking of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. He also knew that for men to suffer forever by reason of death, which they were not responsible for, would be unjust. He therefore provided for the redemption of the soul through Christ's death and resurrection." President Joseph Fielding Smith said, "The spirit and the body are welded so that they can never again be divided when the resurrection comes. And this resurrection is the redemption of the soul, no matter to which kingdom it is assigned." The prophet Joseph Smith explained, "No person can have this salvation except through a tabernacle. Now, in this world, mankind are naturally selfish, ambitious, and striving to excel one above another. Yet some are willing to build up others as well as themselves. So in the other world, there are a variety of spirits. Some seek to excel, and this was the case with Lucifer when he fell. He sought for things which were unlawful. Hence he was sent down, and it was said he drew many away with him. And the greatest of his punishment is that he shall not have a tabernacle. This is his punishment. Elder Charles W. Penrose said, "The Lord, through the prophet Joseph Smith, said that the spirit and the body of man must be inseparably connected before a fullness of joy can be obtained. Man must be raised up in an immortal body which cannot be grasped by the hand of death. The unembodied or disembodied spirit cannot receive the joys that come through the grosser elements. Spirit ministereth to spirit. Spiritual things have affinity to that which is spiritual. There are pleasures which can only flow through the medium of a material body, and hence the necessity of the resurrection. A perfect being is an immortal spirit, dwelling in an immortal body, and by affinity with all things, and having the key to the heights and depths and breadths of the universe, is able to draw from every source the joy and bliss and pleasures and glories that are the heritage of the celestial ones, who are filled with the fullness of the eternal God." Doctrine and Covenants 93:35. The elements are the tabernacle of God. Yea, man is the tabernacle of God, even temples. And whatsoever temple is defiled, God shall destroy that temple. The physical body is a gift from God and is sacred. In this verse and elsewhere, the physical body is compared to a temple. Because we were created in God's image and receive life through the Spirit of Christ, our bodies are called tabernacles of God, or temples. Part of our judgment will be based on our treatment of the body. The prophet Joseph Smith explained, "We came to this earth that we might have a body and present it pure before God in the celestial kingdom." The great principle of happiness consists in having a body. The devil, jealous that he cannot have a physical body, tries to tempt us to abuse it. The Lord, on the other hand, has given the word of wisdom and other counsel so we can know what is good and bad for the body, and how to care for the temple the Lord has given us. Elder David A. Bednar of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles reminded us of the importance of our physical bodies. Because the physical body is so central to the Father's plan of happiness and our spiritual development, we should not be surprised that Lucifer seeks to thwart our progression by enticing us to use our bodies improperly. Ponder the similarities between the church's temples and your own physical body. How might treating your body like the temple it is bring you greater light and truth? Make note of promises about your potential eternal destiny in verses 33 through 35. The glory of God is intelligence. Doctrine and Covenants 93:36. The glory of God is intelligence, or in other words, light and truth. The Lord taught the saints that the glory of God is intelligence, or in other words, light and truth. This intelligence is not just knowledge, but the wisdom to use knowledge in a righteous manner according to God's plan. President Joseph F. Smith taught, "If you love the truth, if you have received the gospel in your hearts and love it, your intelligence will be added upon. Your understanding of truth will be expanded, larger than any other way. Truth is the thing above all other things in the world that make man free. If you will learn the truth and walk in the light of truth, you shall be made free from the errors of men. You will be above suspicion and above wrongdoing of every description. God will approve of you and bless you." It isn't all that is necessary to learn the truth or to cease to be ignorant. Following that comes the application of the understanding and knowledge that we gain to these works and things that are needful for our protection and for the protection of our children, our neighbors, our homes, our happiness. Search out the truth of the written word. Listen for and receive the truth declared by living prophets and teachers. Enrich your minds with the best of knowledge and facts. Of those who speak in his name, the Lord requires humility, not ignorance. Intelligence is the glory of God, and no man can be saved in ignorance. President Gordon B. Hinckley said, "We of this church have been given a marvelous promise by the Lord." Said he, That which is of God is light, and he that receiveth light, and continueth in God, receiveth more light, and that light groweth brighter and brighter, until the perfect day. What a remarkable statement that is! It is one of my favorite verses of Scripture. It speaks of growth, of development, of the march that leads toward godhood. It goes hand in hand with those great declarations: the glory of God is intelligence, or in other words, light and truth. If a person gains more knowledge and intelligence in this life through his diligence and obedience than another, he will have so much the advantage in the world to come. And whatever principle of intelligence we attain unto in this life, it will rise with us in the resurrection. What a profound challenge is found in these marvelous statements. We must go on growing. We must continually learn. It is a divinely given mandate that we go on adding to our knowledge. Elder John A. Widtsoe explained, among the many great truths revealed to the prophet Joseph Smith, none is more beloved by the church than the glory of God is intelligence. The word intelligence, as used in common speech, means readiness of learning, quickness of mind. Its higher gospel meaning is more profound. The intelligent man is he who seeks knowledge and uses it in accordance with the plan of the Lord for human good. This is implied in the revelation from which the quotation is made, for the full sentence reads, "The glory of God is intelligence," or in other words, light and truth. When men follow the light, their knowledge will always be used. Intelligence, then, becomes but another name for wisdom. In the language of mathematics, we may say that knowledge plus the proper use of knowledge equals intelligence or wisdom. In this sense, intelligence becomes the goal of the successful life. Knowledge is one of the means by which such intelligence is attained. The use of knowledge is equally as important, for it gives life and direction to knowledge. Thus, it often happens that a person of limited knowledge, but who earnestly and prayerfully obeys the law, rises to a higher intelligence or wisdom than one of vast gospel learning who does not comply in his daily life with the requirements of the gospel. Obedience to law is a mark of intelligence. Doctrine and Covenants 93:37. Light and truth forsaketh that evil one. President Joseph Fielding Smith said, "The glory of God is intelligence." On this, President Joseph F. Smith has said, Christ inherited his intelligence from his Father. There is a difference between knowledge and pure intelligence. Satan possesses knowledge, far more than we have, but he has not intelligence, or he would render obedience to the principles of truth and light. Pure intelligence comprises not only knowledge, but also the power to properly apply that knowledge. The Lord has defined intelligence, which is the glory of God, as the light of truth, and says that light and truth forsake that evil one. Satan, of course, in his rebellion and hatred of all things righteous, desires to destroy the souls of men. Therefore, he tries to take from them light and truth, that they may be left in spiritual darkness.